Alright everybody, we're going to be going over transition zones of the vertebral column, page 148 for Palmer College of Chiropractic Spinal Tutorial. We're in the green note set, the 16th edition, so 148. Also take a look at page 129 for the typical facet orientations. This is going to help out a lot. If you don't know what the typicals are, this is going to be pretty hard to calculate what the new ones are going to be. So take a look at page 129. So let's first look at dorsalization of C7. This trend is going to follow throughout the spinal column, the cervicals, thoracics, and then lumbars. Dorsalization is just another term for thoracicization. So C7 is going to be our vertebra in question here. And this whole left column is going to be our typical facets, and then the right is the new facets or the changes. So C7 as it stands is already like a thoracic on its inferior articular facet, right? It's a foremed, forwards, medial, and downward, just like T1, typical thoracic. So the only way it can become even more like a thoracic is to change the superior articular facet. So it's going to change to a typical thoracic, which is a bull backwards, upwards, and lateral on the superior side, okay? So now it is completely like a thoracic, right? Okay? But notice we only had one facet change. C7 superior articular facet is the only one that changed. With these, we're always going to have two facet changes because a thoracic can't just hook up with a cervical and vice versa. It needs a transition segment. So now that C7 is a thoracic, C6 needs to pick up the slack. So it's going to change on the inferior side from a fold, forwards, lateral, downwards, to a foremed, just like C7 was. So if this orientation doesn't work with the arrows for you, go ahead and look at it like this. You're always going to have two facet changes. So this whole transition segment is moving from C7 to C6 now, okay? So let's go ahead and look at the next one. Also in parentheses is just a few things that I thought were pertinent. This is typically seen in females. Remember, females are usually a segment above, so C7 versus T1. Also, this is associated with development of a cervical rib, which makes sense because if a C7 has a rib, it's going to become more like a thoracic, etc. Dorsalization, you can see. So cervicalization of T1 is going to be the same thing, just in reverse order. So normally, T1 is a bull for med, correct? It's going to end up transitioning to a bum, just like a cervical would be. Now you can see, in order to interact with a bum, we're going to need C7's inferior articular facet to transition to a fold. So we have two facet changes from the typicals to the new. Always going to have two facet changes. Again, this is usually associated with males and small or no rib development at T1. Just kind of the trends there. Dorsalization of L1, sort of along the same lines. L1 is becoming more like a thoracic. So instead of having this bum on top, it's going to transition to a bull, like a typical thoracic, right? And then in order to articulate with the bull, T12 is going to need to become a foremed. Okay? This is usually seen in males with development of a lumbar rib because the lumbars are becoming more like a thoracic. Thoracics have our ribs. Lumbarization of T12, just like the last one, but in reverse, right? So T12 is going to become more like a lumbar. And because it's a transition segment already, it has a fold on bottom. Only way it becomes more like a lumbar is if it transitions the superior articular facet to a bum. And again, in order to have a bum, you need a fold. So we're always going to have two facet changes, okay? So if this works better for you, go ahead and look at it like this. But know the segment of transition is always going to be, jumping up or down. The last couple, lumbarization of S1, these are pretty straightforward. Go ahead and take a look at the book. Just typed out a few bullet points there, but if you have any questions, please do let me know. Thanks for watching. Hope this helps.